Hi, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. Basically, as you can tell by the title of this video, this is a end of the year, my top favorite books of the year. But first of all, when I started this, it was supposed to be my top 10 favorite books, but I realized I didn't have 10 books that I really loved enough to add onto this. So I didn't have that. So then I was like, oh, I'll do top 5 books. But then I realized that I don't have exactly 5. I have a little more than 5. I have 6 or 7. So I'm going to do 5 plus 3 or 4 honorary mentions. So basically 9-ish, I guess. But yeah, let's just... The first book I have on here is, I don't know if you can read that, but it's Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I actually wasn't going to add this on the list because I forgot that I read it this year because it felt like such a long time ago, but I did read it this year. I read it in the very beginning of the year. I think it was maybe the third book I read. I don't know. It was really early in the year. But in that time, I read this book, listened to the audiobook, and then I think I read it 2 more times at least, or twice I think. But I really, really love this book. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love the characters. I love all her books, and especially this. I think this is my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book so far. I haven't read a few. I haven't read her entire backlist yet, and I haven't read Malibu Rising or Carrie Soto is Back. So we'll see. But for now, this is definitely my favorite. And essentially, it's about a girl named Daisy Jones, and it's about her relationship with this band that she joins, and it's like a rock band in the 1970s, and they're really famous, and it's each of the characters and their relationship with each other and with themselves and with addiction and just all the things that come with this level of popularity and pressure that they receive. And it's such a good book. I feel like it's a book that everyone needs to read, like The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's kind of like that. It's just a book that everyone needs to read at least once. As you can see, I've annotated it a lot. You can't really see, it's really bad quality, but I love this book. And the entire book is it takes place in the form of an interview. So it's I don't know if you can see it, but it says the character's name and then their dialogue and then the name again and then their dialogue. And at first I was that's kind of I don't know how much I'm gonna enjoy that, but I ended up really, it was just so well written, and I do really recommend reading the audiobook for listening to the audiobook for this, because I feel the experience is so much better because they have different voice actors for each character, so the experience is just totally different, and it's amazing. I would recommend listening to the audiobook and then reading it, or the other way around. Either one is fine. Just do both. The next book or books I have on here is actually a duology, and that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Mostly just the second book. I did enjoy the second book a little more than I enjoyed the first one, but I'm just going to put both of these on here. It's just such a good series. I don't know what to tell you. It's so good. It's the best enemies to lovers I've ever read. It's a Romeo and Juliet retelling that's set in 1920s Shanghai, and it's just so immersive, and the writing is amazing, the characters are amazing, the setting is just so unique. I never read books written anywhere but in New York or in London. It's just such a unique setting, and it was so detailed, and it was so good. I don't know what to tell you. It is the best enemies to lovers I've ever read. The build up, the tension, so good. So freaking good. The next book is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is actually, I did read this book twice also, and I annotated it. I annotate most of my books, so it's not shocking at this point. But I did read Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I didn't like People We Meet on Vacation as much as I liked Beach Read, but I still really, really liked it. I thought it was a really well-written book. But anyway, this one is about a girl named Nora Steffens who's like a very like badass like businesswoman, and it's about her and her sister, and they go on vacation to the small town where she meets or re-meets her like her career, what do you call it, her like job rival, I guess. And he's from that town, but they both live in New York, and they start talking, and they like, it's so good. Their relationship is the best thing I've ever read. I say that for everything, but it's so cute, it's so wholesome, and it's just such a good book. It's such a good book. Yeah. And also the main character is like 5'11", I believe, which I loved, because it's always like in like why like the adult rom-coms and stuff, the girl was always like this petite like 5'2" person who's like all chipper and like cheery and happy and lovable. And this character was just so real because she was 5'11", and she was always talking about how the standards are different for women, and I love it. Read this. The next book is The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I had to add this on here because it's the end of a trilogy, the Inheritance Games trilogy. It's pretty popular, but it's just about this girl named Avery Grams who inherits a bunch of money from this random guy that she's never met, and that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Next, I have Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. I didn't think I'd like this book. I didn't know how much I'd like it. I didn't really have any like expectations for it, but I love this book. You don't understand. I think about it constantly. Like after I read it, I was like, oh, it's a good book. I definitely really enjoyed it, but I cannot stop thinking about it. It is so good. It's so good. It's about this girl who has like severe OCD, and she's so concerned with like fitting in her high school, and she's terrified of people finding out about her OCD, and it's so good. Like that's all you really need to know. It just depicts mental illness in a very like real way, and it's very like triggering, I guess. Like the things she goes through are very like vivid, and it's written really vividly. But anyway, this girl, she stumbles upon this place called Poets Corner, where a bunch of like people from her school just like meet a couple times a week during lunch and recite poetry. And it's like, it doesn't even have to be like good poetry, it's often like bad poetry, and they just recite it to each other, and like they talk, and they're just like this small community. And she finally starts realizing that she like finally fits in, and obviously things go wrong. So the next book I have is The Atlas Six, and you guys, literally, okay, so I read this book last year. I read most of it, like 70% of it, didn't like it, didn't vibe with it, just thought it was so boring. And then I was like, I don't know why I don't like it, because it's just my kind of book. So I was like, maybe I'm just not in the right headspace. Then I picked it up again this year, and guys, you don't understand. I love this book. It is so, sorry, it cut off. It is so good. It is so, so good. Like, the dark academia, the characters, I hate all of them. Like, they're terrible people. I despise them. I think they're just horrendous, but I love them. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't care. It's so good. It's so, oh my god, I cannot. It's so good. I even bought The Atlas Paradox because I just needed it. So read this too. I also annotated this a lot. I'm just rooting for Nico and Libby. I just want them to be happy. That's all. As for our honorable mentions, I'm going to be really quick about this because I actually have to go. So the first one is The Stationery Shop by Marhan Kamali. I was going to add this onto my list. Like, I seriously considered it, but I feel like I don't remember enough of it to add it onto the list. I read it a long time ago, like in the beginning of this year, but I read it really quickly, and so I don't remember a lot of it. So I do want to reread it, and then I will probably mentally put it in my list, but for now it's not going to be on my actual master list. But basically, it's about this girl named Roya who doesn't move, sorry. It's about this girl named Roya who lives in Tehran in 1953, where she meets this boy in the stationery shop called Bahman, and they decide to get married. Except the day that he sends her a letter and he's like, meet me at this place, and she goes there, except he's not there, and instead there's a raid. And a few days later he sends her a letter saying, I don't think we should get married, like it's just not working out. And obviously she's really like confused, distraught, and she moves across the world to California. And then it's just like kind of a time jump to the present day. And at this point she's married to someone else. She has a son. She's lived her life. And then I think she meets his grandson, and she wants to find out like everything that happened, like what happened, why weren't you there that day? And it's like her finding out all these things. And I wouldn't mark it as a love story because it's very much not. It's like, I think I wrote this on my Goodreads review, but I said it's a love story, but it's a love letter to life, love, loss, and all those things. It's so good. Like, it is so good. I would totally recommend this to fans of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and yeah. Next, I have Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. I picked this up and I bought it because I love Chloe Gong. I loved, as you can see, The Violent Delights was on my favorite books of the year, so I bought this. I did not as much, but I did definitely really, really enjoy it, so I had to add it on here. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you about it, except it's about this girl named Rosalind. It's about a side character from that series, and it's her story, like after the events of These Violent Delights. And it was really good. I really did enjoy it. It just was not my favorite. Next, I have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I loved this book. I really, really did. But there were parts where I felt like, oh, this is too long, it's boring, it's tiring, I just want like things to move on. And I wasn't really satisfied with the ending. So I did give it a 4 stars, but I really did love this book. Like, I loved this book. It's about these two people, friends named Sam and Sadie. And they were friends when they were younger, except something happened and they stopped being friends. And then years later, they meet in college and they decide to build a game together because that's something that they enjoyed doing when they were younger. They loved gaming. So they decide to build a game together, and it takes place over years. Like, I think more than a decade, but I'm not sure. It takes place over years. Like, this game, they make a part 2, and it's like their journey separately and with each other, and their friendship and their relationships like outside of that. And it's about like their life. And again, if you love Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, you will love this too. I would totally recommend this. I felt like there was just something missing, and at the same time it was too much because it was too long for me, because I felt like it could have easily been, like some parts could have easily been cut out and it would have been like so much better, but I still definitely love this book. Anyway, that's all for my favorite books of the year, and oh my god, the pile just fell down. But anyway, bye. See you in my next video, whenever that'll be. No promises, though.